Welcome to Indie Film Podcast. I'm Victoria.
And I am Chuck. We're your podcast hosts, and our goal with Indie Film Podcast is to share our filmmaking mistakes so that you can avoid them.
So join us on our journey as we strive to just keep appearing in all your social media feeds.
One day at a time. Keep scrolling through those reels.
Yeah.
Like us, follow us, share our content, and save your friends from filmmaking disasters.
Oh, yeah, because they can be real rough.
This month, we're talking about fixing it in post.
We are. And today, specifically, we're talking about visual effects emergencies.
I feel like this is the quintessential fix it in post issue when people are like, well, we'll just fix that in post. They're normally talking about visual effects.
They are. And I desperately want a t-shirt that says, we are absolutely not fixing that in post.
It's a nightmare when you have to do that.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan when somebody just looks at me and says, well, you'll just fix it in post, right? No.
It takes 10 times as much work.
Yeah, if you can.
Versus doing practical effects. What are visual effects in your book?
For me, it's pretty much everything that doesn't happen natively in the camera. So if you're adding anything, I would qualify that as a visual effect, which technically, for me, puts color grading in visual effects. I would say that I believe your color grade is a part of your visual effects department.
Got it.
Section.
Whenever I think of visual effects, I think of compositing, which is basically taking two different shots and making them one shot.
Yeah.
I.e. The Hobbit, when they would composite, or not The Hobbit, but Lord of the Rings, when they would composite the hobbits, they would do that technique. That wasn't compositing, actually, was it? That was just a visual technique as far as making them farther away in the frame to make them look smaller.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be compositing at
all.
all.
It wouldn't quite be compositing, but they did film with a lot of green screen stuff, and I would call that a visual effect.
Definitely compositing. Or if you're inserting a television like screen into your shot and you're covering it up with something else, that would be compositing.
Or anytime you have like an iPhone or a phone. Doesn't have to be an iPhone. Obviously, I'm trying to get Apple to be our sponsor as well, apparently. Thanks, Apple. They will not. But when you see text message notifications or phone calls or whatever come through, or when they pop up on like the actual screen image, I don't know if that's, I don't think I would call that compositing per se.
Yeah, but sometimes that is. If they're looking at their phone and you just have an actor look at the phone and you film the phone and you think, I'm going to add the screen in I want later in post. Yeah. That turns into a nightmare.
It's a pain in the butt.
Masking's another example that I always think of.
Masking's a big one.
And that was when I screwed up really badly, which you can see on YouTube, just so you know.
Everyone go look this up right now.
Second episode of Chit Chat series that we released on Lower Gentry Studios YouTube channel. I was trying to fix an overexposure on one actor's face in the frame that wasn't on another actor's face in the frame. Oh. And so what you do on that is you have to make a tracking mask.
Yeah.
So you make like an oval or a circle around their face, and you just bring down the exposure only in that area.
Yeah.
And then the mask follows them around. But the thing is I forgot to feather it.
Oh.
I did it a whole bunch of times, but like one of the frames I forgot to feather, and so it just looks like this shadowy egg following this actor's head around. And it's in the second episode. It's when they're all sitting around the table talking to each other, and you can see it on the YouTube version that we released. We screened it at a film festival, and I fixed it for that screening.
Well, that's good.
It was already online, and once you have your video on YouTube, you can't change it.
Nope. The internet is forever, and YouTube demands it stay that way.
Absolutely. Internet is eternal. But yeah, masking is something I consider a visual effect, and that's something easy to screw up.
It is.
You got to pay real close attention. This is frame by frame type crap.
It is.
We're talking about adding into. And if you have 24 frames a second and you're trying to do 20 seconds, I don't know what 24 times 20 is. It's a lot.
It's over 400, probably, right?
Maybe like 480, somewhere around that neighborhood.
Man, I almost just did math in my head. I'm so proud of myself right now.
Warming up. The questions are going to get harder as we go along.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Not more math. But I would also say your graphics that you have in your film. So any titling that you've got, your credits that you've got, anything like that, those count.
Visual effects. Green screen is a big one. Chroma key is what it's called technically. Ooh, those things are real hard to do. For me.
If you cannot light your green or blue screen, yes, that is going to be awful for you. That is going to be awful. You're going to have
you
a bad
ever
time.
mislit a green screen?
Oh, yeah. I mean, in junior high, we did the video announcements every morning, and that was always exciting because it was just green screen and it was so bad.
Oh, my gosh. I was doing a video. I used to work for a large tech firm, and I had to have my hand come in and press buttons on a control panel for a piece of hardware that they sell. And
so
we didn't have the hardware. We didn't have the screen because they hadn't developed the operating system for the hardware yet.
Oh.
So we didn't have what it was supposed to show. We didn't have the thing it was supposed to show.
Wait, then why were you supposed to make a video for it yet?
So this is the way large tech firms work. They're absolutely horrendous. So I had to go in one day, and they're like, well, we need your hand. And I had to go in with the camera, put a green tablecloth over this table that was part of the shooting environment that we filmed laptops and stuff on. And I went in there and just did like button pushing stuff like into the middle of nowhere on the screen. And I had to do it twice because when I went in there, I didn't light the green properly, brought all the footage back home because it was a quasi remote job where they had all the camera equipment like on location. And then they sent us home with all of the editing stuff into our home office. Went in, did all that filming, came back. And because I didn't evenly light the green tabletop, when you tried to remove the green from it to get a clear background, you have all these just weird
patches because technically they're different shades of green. So it's like, well, I don't want to remove more than just this shade of green. And you can tweak a little bit of it and try to feather something. But yeah, unless you... Yeah.
You can't just green screen things very simply if you don't know what the hell you're doing.
No, it's not.
But you learn by trying.
You do. And sometimes you're just so desperate to learn it, you paint your entire office very, very neon chroma key green.
That's a good way to do it. Do you happen to have an office that's...
I happen to have an office.
With a neon green wall?
3 neon green walls.
Oh, nice. I just do sound foam in my home office.
That's a little smarter. My 4th wall is a slightly darker green, so that way I can justify it as being an aesthetic choice, not I'm just here to play with chroma key options.
Well, that's good. So you've had some practice.
I have.
And how do you decide in your film whether or not to include visual effects?
I try to figure that out first in the script. So one script I'm actually working on right now.
Okay.
I have a bunch of text message exchanges happening.
Right.
And I'm trying to figure out the best way to do that. Because for me, I really hate when they show text messages on a screen in the film. Because 9 times out of 10, it's not up there long enough for me to read it, or it's not large enough for me to read it, or I can't tell what's going on. So I miss anything that happened in that text message. If it is pertinent, I'm not going to see it. But filming those practically live where I just have my scripty or my AD or somebody offset or off camera texting the actual actor and actually shooting it means that I don't have to spend all the time in post animating all these text messages. Yes,
because text message animations, they look kind of nice. I think they look
Sometimes they can look good. I have done some that are really bad looking before, though. In very recent, like last summer, I did some animated text messages that it was for a 48-hour festival, so I did not have
what are you gonna do?
The time that I wanted to put into it. And I want to redo that one. I want to do over.
Why don't you just have them say, why don't you just have like a VO? Voiceover of this text message.
Because we got silent film. We weren't allowed to have any talking.
Oh,
that's why they were communicating via text.
This one, don't even worry about visual effects. Just have somebody read the text out loud.
Except
just
she's
text
not.
Actor.
The key is she's not allowed to read the text messages as they happen on her phone.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I just paint myself into corners.
Just another actor that's the audience will know.
That's playing the phone.
Yeah.
This actor is playing the phone. Thank you.
I will read this out loud. Yes. Now you know that this has been on the screen long enough because I will say it as it's happening.
Yes. Well, I think It depends on the project. It depends. You should know when you go through and read your script, and especially by the time you get to your shot listing, you should have an idea of, okay, these are the visual effects I know I'm going to need.
Yeah.
But what about you? How do you know when your film actually needs visual effects?
When it's too late, and we should have planned on that ahead of time. That's how I know. You helped us out.
I did get to hop in and help out.
We shot a couple years back our feature film Stockton to Table Rock, and the street we were shooting on was supposed to be Stockton Avenue, but
hence the name of the movie.
It's the titular shot of this movie, and we bought a street sign that said Stockton Avenue. We were going to guerrilla style cover the street that we were filming on and make that Stockton Avenue, because the actual Stockton Avenue in Garden City, is it Garden City or Boise?
It's in Garden City. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of it's not very
It's
photogenic.
very industrial. It's just got warehouses on it.
Yeah, and so we didn't want to have that shot. We wanted to use the neighborhood we're in. So got a street sign. That didn't fit on the day of shooting. So we're like, well,
we could change the name of the movie.
We can change the name of the movie to
Manville.
Manville, because that was the name of the street we were.
Manville to Table Rock.
Manville to Table Rock.
That would be a very different movie.
It would have been a little bit slightly different. Or we could just fix it in post. Like, how hard could it be? And we never learned. How hard was it to change Manville to Stockton Avenue, Victoria? Because you came in at the 11th hour and frame by frame adjusted it, because it was a moving shot. And so if you're unfamiliar with virtual effects, if you have a static shot, it's really easy to composite. Like if I wanted to put myself, or you wanted to put yourself in our frame where we are right now, you can just cover it up because the camera's not moving.
Yeah.
And you can
really nice.
Record another thing and then just keep it in the same spot, and you wouldn't be able to tell. But since this was a moving shot and it was like a push, zoom, pan type thing, and it was moving in all three axes, you had to go in each individual frame and change and rotate the sign.
To be fair, there was something off. Like I still don't know why the actual tracking wasn't working, because usually you can set that up pretty easy in After Effects to just set your key points that it needs to follow and where it should actually be in relation to what's happening. And it actually does a really good job of auto tracking that. I've never had it be an issue before until, of course, Stockton.
Well, because we're a giant pain in your butt.
No.
And that was...
No, I was so excited to finally get to help, because I was shooting a movie at the same time y'all were shooting that one. So I didn't get to help out with Stockton. So it was actually really nice that I got to hop in and do something.
It was really nice for us, because we didn't know what the hell we were doing, and we attempted it twice, and it did, like you said, the After Effects for some reason wasn't picking up the three-dimensionality of this shot that we did, so it wouldn't just automatically attach. We photoshopped that sign, which people sometimes are like, why can't you just Photoshop that into the video? Photoshop is for pictures, and that's one frame.
That is a single frame, and I was not about to do all, because it was like a 45 to 60 second shot?
Mm-hmm. And the sign was in there for a good 10 seconds, I want to say.
I thought it was closer to 15.
Was it? Okay. Well, you would remember more than me.
I don't know. Maybe not.
Painstakingly went through every single frame.
Well, maybe that's why it felt longer to me.
Yeah.
It was only in there for 2 seconds, and it just felt so much longer.
Because every single frame. So when you're moving in three-dimensional space, you basically had to take that two-dimensional image that we gave you of Stockton Avenue and kind of stretch it and angle it and twist it each frame.
No, because I didn't want to do that, because then it would look like the letters would be changing shapes.
Oh.
So you had created this you took the original street sign and a frame from the film, right?
Yeah.
And then cut everything else out, so it's just the street post and sign, and then changed it to say Stockton instead of Manville. And then you were trying to layer that over.
Mm-hmm.
But because the camera kept getting nearer and farther, it was changing sizes and stuff, which technically didn't work for that one frame, because then the pole wasn't long enough, and because it was changing angles, the sign didn't really work that way. So I actually took that, got rid of the pole, just kept it the sign, actually took off the edges of the sign with a feathered eraser in Photoshop, just so that way it was just a little bit of green on the edge of the letters.
Okay.
And then I put that on top of the Manville and then went through frame by frame, adjusting on the X, Y, and Z axis. I've picked 2 spots on like 2 of the Manville letters, dropped the opacity way down on the Stockton overlay, and then just made sure that every frame it was pinned at that exact same spot. But technically that Stockton image doesn't go all the way to the edge of the sign, because as you turn the camera and go around the street corner, then you get more depth of the sign than what I had available to me.
Oh, dang.
So I didn't want to deal with that because you guys needed it in 3 days?
Yeah, it was like a super quick turnaround.
Yeah.
But you knocked it out of the park. So
it's not 100% if you watch it really closely. I do every time.
Yeah, if you look closely, those visual effects things.
Yeah.
It just, they're always a little bit off.
Yeah.
If you know what you're looking for. So do you have any visual effects fails that you want to? Because I just started off with ours because that was
that's a problem. If your movie is called Stockton to Table Rock and suddenly they live on Manville but are talking about getting to a neighborhood at the top of Table Rock, which is the very high, I don't know, what would you say, prominent, affluent, high economic status. Is that it? Okay.
Yeah, area.
Area. Yes. Yes. That's a big issue because you can either rename your movie or figure it out.
Yeah, and that was a little bit trickier in post than we had hoped for, but thank you for taking care of it for us. And next time, in hindsight, it's better to just shoot on the street and do things the way that they're supposed to be done in camera or in real life.
Yeah.
And use practical effects wherever possible.
Practical effects are so cool. I love practical effects, though. I think my biggest fail, I feel like, was actually kind of a win because I was so proud of it. I think I still am, which is not okay.
Okay.
But it is back to green screening.
Okay.
It was one of the first times I'd ever really tried green screen chroma key by myself. And I was making a horrible action flick called Pluck, Rise of the Tweezers.
Oh, yes.
That was actually part of the Lower Gentry Studios Gong Show that was here in town not
Didn't
that long
make it
ago.
to the end. You almost won Fastest Gong.
I almost won Fastest Gong. I was trying. I was doing my absolute best to goad everyone into booing as absolutely fast as possible, but I did not win, which is a shame because that movie's terrible, so it deserved it. So anyway, sorry. So the whole concept of the film is that there are all these evil monstrous, culty Nazi tweezers, and they are killing people. And I handmade all of these terrible Nazi-looking costumes for these tweezers and put googly eyes on them and turned them into people. And they all have little mustaches and little, like, the armbands thing. And it's terrible. Because you got to show that they're evil, right?
Yeah.
You got to show that they're evil. And so we ended up shooting everything that we wanted.
Okay.
And it's an action flick. So there's a scene where, guys running or whatever. And I had some extra footage of that. But we didn't really have anything he was running from, per se.
Okay.
And then 48-hour film festival, only have so much time to do it. Power goes out during the edit.
Oh, no.
So I'm just kind of stuck doing nothing. And I was like, what would be super fun? Let's add a scene where he's running from something. So I got some toy motorcycles. I put all the little tweezers on toy motorcycles. I got a shoebox. I lined it with neon green paper. I lit it with a bunch of flashlights that my father and I were holding because, of course, I was living at home at the time.
Yeah.
And shot just shaking the camera a little bit so that the tweezers on the motorcycles would bounce in and out of frame.
Oh, okay.
And then put a bunch of fake footage over it once the power finally came back on. So I got to green screen some horrible tweezer monsters on motorcycles.
And that is fun to have some bad looking green screen on it.
Oh yeah, it looks terrible.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, it's funny. Yeah. And it's technically not a horror film, it's action.
Oh yeah, it's true.
It's just everything I shoot has a little horrific note to it, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. I think my biggest fail was still the Stockton thing, and then we had the unfeathered masks on the Chit Chat, the Chit Chat series, episode 2. It's one of those things when you're going frame by frame and making edits to these things, it's easy to lose sight of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And when you have to watch it back in real time, you pay too much attention to it, and you don't know if people's eyes will be drawn to whatever VFX thing you add into your film.
There's no way to know.
So you just got to show it to someone else and hope that it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb.
No, you really have to hope, though. But I will say, drifting a little bit to good and bad examples.
Oh, yeah, let's do it. I'm ready to talk about those.
I feel like this kind of bridges the gap a little bit. So the idea of, obviously, horror and monster movies and things like that.
Yeah.
Showing the monster is oftentimes done in post, right? Because you need to create or animate or in some ways stylize or adjust your monster.
Yeah.
And I actually think that's a really bad choice. Because the human imagination is so much worse than whatever you could animate or create, especially that looks realistic and lifelike.
Oh, okay.
If you can get away with skipping the visual effects and never actually seeing the monster, it's going to be so much more terrifying, I think.
That makes sense. I'm trying to think of some examples where they didn't even show the monster in movies.
They did a good job. Oh, gosh, what was that movie called? And I didn't love it because it was kind of found footage-y, so... but the movie where the city's like falling apart and crumbling down. Oh, I should have written this one down.
So many post-apocalyptic
I know. I was
movies.
like, but post-apocalyptic movies are a good example of stuff like that.
I did just throw you a curveball too, talking about what are some examples of some movies where they don't show the monsters.
I'm trying to think of a few good ones.
There's not a lot of them though.
There's not a ton.
Cloverdale, maybe.
That was it. Yes, because I want to say that it wasn't until the very, very end that they finally showed you the monster.
Yeah, it was like destroying the buildings and stuff.
Yeah,
but
prior to that, you hadn't seen them, and I thought it was so much more powerful until you saw the monster.
Contact. They never show the aliens.
Oh, there you go. See, that's another good example. Look at you go. You got better examples than I do on that front.
I'm pulling them out left and right. Yeah, that's a good point. You know, the human imagination, it's unique then.
Yeah.
And visual effects can be real bad.
Visual effects can be really bad, which, another point, my preference of visual effects is always to use it to enhance what's already there.
Okay.
So, of course, I'm a big fan of practical effects and doing everything as much as possible live. But I had one scene where, in The Man Who Would Not Shake Hands, where a guy gets physically beaten to death.
Okay.
And the guy who's punching him, you know, we're seeing him mostly as he's fighting, and then a couple shots cutting to the guy who's getting his face beaten in. And I guess I could have thrown a trigger warning of some sort on this. I didn't realize that just how violent I would be talking about. I'm so sorry if I've offended anyone. So he's going, and we paused between some of the shots to add more makeup and more blood and things like that to his face. But by the end of it, you can tell his skull's not crushed or anything like that. But there is a lot of blood, and there's a lot of like bruising and dark, like great makeup artist, great job by the actors, everything like that. But it just doesn't quite, it's not 100%. So in post, I went through to make that worse.
Okay. And how did you make it worse in post?
I just kind of messed with the image a little bit because it was a little handheld. So there was a slight motion on it, but it wasn't a ton of motion. And you can add a lot more blood, a lot more bruising and shading. You can add sort of like almost a pushed bubble effect on it where the skull just looks a little bit
caved in.
Yeah, there's blatant misshaping of the bone structure as opposed to just blood on a perfectly whole human face.
Nice. So that's a good point. You weren't trying to make him all beat up and bloody and bruising.
No.
You were just accentuating.
Just trying to make it a little bit worse.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
I like that. I like that approach to visual effects a lot more. Like Krampus, because I love talking about Krampus. It's blatantly one of my favorite movies. But they actually did have a puppet and a guy in the puppet playing Krampus.
Oh, yeah.
They got to add a few little finishing touches in post and a few additional things, some like spittle coming from his mouth and whatnot. But the puppet is there. There is this giant, monstrous, hoofed creature.
It's not like one of those BTS videos you see of a Marvel movie shoot where they all have balls on. They're just like dressed in like green suits on a green screen.
Looks like Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, little Pac-Man balls all over their body to track their motion, and everything is just made in a computer.
Yeah, it wasn't that.
I am not a fan of that. Do you have some bad examples and good examples of VFX in famous films that you want to reference?
I really wanted to mention specifically just like don't show the monster. I think that's it. And then I have a note about another reason you should be careful about visual effects is the uncanny valley.
Oh, yes. Uncanny Valley.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain Uncanny Valley?
Yeah. So the human mind and your eyes and your brain can perceive other human faces pretty well. And some of that is, and now I forget the name of that effect, but where you're like looking at a pattern of wallpaper and you kind of see a face in it, or when you can see faces in the clouds or whatever. The human mind.
Schizophrenia. Is that the term?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
There could be some overlap.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called, but it's the propensity for humans to see faces because we want to recognize other faces, and just instinctually that's what we do.
Yeah.
Which is cool and really amazing. The human brain's cool, but when your image is not human but is trying very hard to be human, it gets very uncomfortable.
Yes.
And it doesn't feel right. And it's one of the reasons that we have issues with some of the AI images where it looks like a person, but it's not quite. And you just get that crawling feeling in the back of your brain. Yeah. Or why Slender Man was so creepy as an entire concept because it's human-ish.
Got it.
Yeah. So that's...
Uncanny Valley, that's my bad examples, is when those human-type characters are generated by computers, CGI. Harry Potter. Do you remember the first Harry Potter movie when they were playing Quidditch? And it was all CGI. And when I was watching that way back in the day, I was like, they don't have the technology yet.
It's not there.
I don't know if they ever fixed it in re-releases, but it looks so bad.
I do remember that, actually. I think I just remember seeing some of their like shapes, like zipping around or whatever, and being like,
when they're throwing the ball and stuff, it's like their arms don't move quite naturally. And Matrix 2 is another good example when he fights all the Agent Smiths.
Oh,
because they start off and they're actually filming them fighting, and then there's an army of Agent Smiths that start coming out of the buildings, and then there's this hard cut and it's all CGI and it looks like garbage. And it's such a bummer too, because in the original Matrix, the Wachowskis invented so many different methodologies. I don't know if it was them or if it was their crew. I shouldn't communicate who gets
somebody
credit.
Represented by the Wachowskis.
Yes, and they invented so many different types of camera tricks and special effects, and then to just go right into CGI on the second one so heavily for that fight scene.
It's a little heartbreaking.
Or maybe it was that the third. I think it was the second, though. I think it was the end of the second, the Smiths all die, and then at the end of the second, he stops the robots out in the real world. And
I think you're right.
Yeah, it was the second one. But yeah, that was bad. Early Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, when Spidey was swinging around and he was all special effecty.
You will never take that movie from my heart, though.
Tobey Maguire is one of the worst actors to ever be on screen.
That movie meant everything to my little, what was that, junior high heart. I loved that. I loved that movie so hard. I downloaded it on LimeWire or Kazaa through my dial-up internet connection.
Dang.
That is how much I wanted that movie.
That would have taken days.
It did. It actually took weeks because I could only do it at night, right? So it took a very, very long time. And then at the end of the day, wasn't even the full right cut of the movie.
Oops.
Yeah.
Brutal. Yeah, those are my examples. And then good ones like Jurassic Park. That still holds up pretty well.
So there's a documentary, and I'm trying to remember, I think it's on Netflix, all about the visual effects process that went into Jurassic Park.
They had to clone a dinosaur, bring it on set, let it eat people.
So many people died.
Does that count as visual effects when you're making dinosaur clones?
There was this whole competition thing. It was one studio that was the prominent visual effects studio that had the contract but couldn't make it look real. And then this other little indie studio came out of nowhere and was just like, hey, actually, we can.
Oh, nice.
And they could. And it looked good. And it took some time, obviously. And I wish I could remember. There was so much more detail. There was so much drama, but it was just this moment to root for the little underdog, and it was it was a cool documentary.
And we all know in the end, whatever that little tiny studio was probably got bought by Sony or something.
Completely bought out and does not exist as an individual anymore.
And all those programmers got fired.
Yep.
And that's the way indie film works.
Hopefully, they got good severance packages.
You can only hope.
You can ask for.
Should we end on a succinct goodbye?
I think that feels pretty good.
Bye.
Bye.